Hi, I'm Nicholas Sontag, Senior Manager for Sustainability at Sustain.Life, and this is The Week in Sustainability. This is where our team of experts get together to share some of the most important stories in sustainability. Today, I'm joined by Hannah Osofsky, an analyst on our sustainability team. Hi, Hannah.
Hey Nick, how's it going?
It's going great. What have you got for us today?
Yeah, so I talked about methane a few weeks ago, and I'm sticking with it this week. So the IEA released a new analysis showing that the energy sector's methane emissions increased globally in 2022. Last year, the energy sector emitted almost 135 million metric tons of methane, which was about a 4% increase from the prior year. We're not going to cover all the factors that explain the increase, but I'll focus on two. The first is methodological. We're simply getting better at finding methane leaks. Satellites are our main tool in detecting them. And in 2022, we saw an improvement in their sensitivity as well as an increase in deployment. So logically, we're accounting for methane emissions that were coming out of leaks that we just weren't detecting beforehand. And then the second factor behind 2022's increase is just that 2022 was kind of a dramatic year for methane release events. There was a really big failure in a Pemex facility in Mexico. So for 17 days, a wellhead that should have been combusting methane prior to release was just not functioning properly and released about 40,000 metric tons of methane over the course of 17 days. And then second, 2022 saw the biggest pipeline leak topped the charts, became the world's largest recorded methane leak. And so an explosion that damaged the Nord Stream pipeline released 150,000 metric tons into the Baltic Sea, which bubbled into the atmosphere. These events are huge and terrible, and I'd like to highlight that smaller operational leaks are left unaddressed for much longer. The IEA actually estimates that those leaks are releasing an equivalent of the Nord Stream almost every day on average, which is really scary to think about.
Wow.
And I like talking about methane, not because I like thinking about disasters, but because methane is something to feel really optimistic about. While it's much more potent than CO2, it sticks around for a lot less time. And if we're able to halt methane release, which is not a simple task, but we see real atmospheric composition changes before 2050.
Okay. So, some reasons for cautious optimism. In particular, we're getting better at measuring it and detecting it.
I think so. Methane is a huge problem to tackle. Not saying it's easy, but it's something to focus on and see results for within a short term.
Makes a lot of sense. One way for us to reduce methane leaks and reduce methane emissions is just actual source reduction. The less fossil fuels we use, the less methane is going to be emitted as a result. And one way we can do that is through setting what are called renewable portfolio standards. And last month, we had some exciting news on that front. Minnesota joined about a dozen states and territories in setting a 100% carbon free and renewable target for their state's grid. So they're requiring their state utilities to provide 100% carbon free electricity by the year 2040. The state previously had a target of 25% by 2025. They are way ahead of schedule. They're currently sitting at about 35% renewable. A lot of that is because of hydroelectric power that they're importing from Manitoba. But given those resources are pretty much maxed out, this new standard is going to lead to significant expansion of solar and wind, both in Minnesota and also in neighboring states, particularly in North Dakota. So, really exciting news there. Interestingly, North Dakota is actually suing Minnesota over this law because Minnesota is North Dakota's largest customer for fossil fuel electricity. And the fossil fuel industry is the largest industry in North Dakota. So the lawsuit isn't expected to go anywhere, but I think it says a lot about North Dakota politics and who's pulling the strings over there. Some of the other states with similar standards to Minnesota's 100% carbon free target: California, New York, Oregon, Washington. These are states we'd expect to be on that list. But there are some other states that are more of a surprise: Virginia, New Mexico, Nevada in particular. And then just a note on electrification. This is why we talk about electrification so much. Electric grids are naturally getting greener either through legal requirements or, more importantly, through economics. And you can't take advantage of a green grid unless you have electrified your fossil fuel loads. Once you do that, your emissions will fall just naturally as the grid becomes greener over time. So this is why we always pound the table about electrification. And that wraps up this week's The Week in Sustainability. We will see you next week.